Nobody wants to admit they've got roaches. I know that. You'd sooner tell the neighbor your truck's transmission is shot than tell him you saw something skitter across the linoleum at 2 in the morning. So let's just get that out of the way right now. You don't have roaches because you're dirty. You have roaches because they're roaches. They got into the Pentagon. They got into a hospital in Switzerland. They will get into a house where the lady mops twice a day and irons her dish towels. It is not about you. Half a bay leaf snapped in two, sitting on the shelf behind the coffee maker, a $4 bottle of peppermint oil from the dollar store, a small bag of white powder from the feed store, about $12 all in for a weekend's worth of supplies, and the bugs leave and they don't come back. Not a $180 monthly contract, not a fogger you set on a dinner plate, $12 and a Saturday. And before your wife yells in from the other room, no, none of this hurts the kids. Doesn't hurt the dog sleeping on the rug. Doesn't knock down a honeybee in the yard. I wouldn't put it in my own house if it did. Well, my name's Walt. I'm just a fella who got tired of watching good people pay through the nose for poison when a few cheap things off the shelf work better. I'm not a salesman. I'm not the truck that sprays your baseboards and hangs a little flyer on the doorknob. I'm a guy at the fence telling you what I figured out. And I'll tell you the one thing the spray truck folks really would rather you never sort it out on your own, because once you read the label on what they're misting around your kitchen, you don't want a drop of it in your house either. Here's how the business actually works. A fella knocks on your door in the spring. He's polite. He offers you a plan. 60 a visit, 100, 200 if you've got a big house and a crawl space. Every month or every quarter he comes out, sprays a perimeter, hangs a door tag, the truck pulls away. Nobody inside that business is ever going to say this out loud, so I will. A cheap one-time fix doesn't refill itself every month. A contract does. That's the whole game. The chemistry isn't magic. The billing is recurring. My brother-in-law Dale signed one of those contracts last spring. 18 months in, he's still got ants on the counter. He's out about $1,400, and the truck still comes every 4 weeks like the mail. I told him what I'm about to tell you. He didn't listen. He never does. That's a separate problem. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk you through exactly what I do, in the order I do it, what I buy, what I spend, and what each step is actually accomplishing. No skipped beats, no mystery. By the end of this, you'll know the whole protocol, and you'll know which parts the internet lies to you about. First thing, let me get the obvious out of the road, because most folks have already tried the wrong thing twice. Well, you see a roach run across the floor at 2 in the morning, you reach under the sink, you grab the can, you spray the baseboard, you feel better. That can kill the one roach you saw. It did almost nothing about the 40 you didn't see. Contact spray is a feel-good. It is not a fix. I'm not mad at you for using it. We've all done it. But understand what it is. The foggers are worse, the bug bombs, the total release cans you set on a dinner plate and leave the house for 4 hours. Those things are not just useless. They actively make your problem bigger, and here's why. A fogger pushes a cloud of pesticide out into the open air of the room. Roaches do not live in the open air of the room. Roaches live behind your fridge, up under the lip of the cabinet, down inside the wall void where the plumbing comes through the floor. When that cloud hits, the roaches feel it and they scatter deeper. They do not die, they move. I have heard from folks 2 weeks after they set off a fogger who found roaches in bedrooms that had never had one before. That is not a guess. That is just what foggers do. You did not kill the colony, you spread it across the house. So put the fogger down, set the spray can on the back of the shelf and forget about it. Here is what actually works, and here is why each piece does what it does. Step 1. You take their water away. So this is the one nobody talks about, and it is the single biggest thing you can do tonight for free in about 20 minutes. A roach can go a long time without food. A roach cannot go long without water. Water is the leash on the bug. Cut the leash, and either they leave on their own looking for a drink, or they're weak enough by Friday that the rest of this finishes them off easy. So grab a flashlight and get down on your knees. I know. The knees aren't what they used to be. Mine pop like a paper bag every time I stand up out of a chair. Look under the kitchen sink. Is the trap sweating? Is there a slow drip at the supply line you've been meaning to fix since Easter? Is there a dish rag balled up wet in the corner of the counter? Is the dog's water bowl sitting out on the back porch all night long? Fix the drip, a $2 washer from the hardware store. Dry the cabinet floor out with an old towel. Wring that rag out and hang it over the faucet to dry. Pick the dog bowl up at bedtime and set it in the sink. My beagle gives me a look every night when I do it. He'll live. The drain in your kitchen sink. Pour it dry before bed and lay a folded paper towel right over it. Same with the shower drain if your roach trouble is in the bathroom. They come up through the trap at night looking for a drink. Take the drink away and they got nowhere to be. You do that one thing for a week and you will already see fewer of them, I promise. Step 2. You take their food away. And before you get nervous, I am not asking you to keep a magazine kitchen. Lord knows mine isn't. A roach feeds on crumbs you cannot see. The grease film on top of the stove. The little brown ring of dried coffee under the coffee maker. The piece of dog kibble that bounced behind the bowl in March. The bag of flour with the top folded over instead of clipped shut. So 3 habits, that's all. Wipe the stove top down with a soapy rag every night before bed. 90 seconds. Sweep the kitchen floor, just the kitchen, not the whole house, every night before bed. And put your dry goods in jars with a screw lid. Flour, sugar, cornmeal, cereal, dog food, all of it. Mason jars from the grocery are about $2 a piece, or save your spaghetti sauce jars and run them through the dishwasher and use those. Either one is fine. I use the spaghetti jars. My wife uses the proper mason jars. We live in a house divided. So now you've cut their water and you've starved them. They are already packing. The next 2 steps are what actually finish the colony. Step 3. Diatomaceous earth. This is the cheapest miracle in the pest world. And the big companies will not put it on a truck because you can buy a sack of it at the feed store for $10 or $12 and it lasts you years. They cannot bill you monthly for something that sits on your pantry shelf for half a decade. Food grade, that is the only kind you want. It says food grade right on the bag, not the pool filter kind. The pool filter kind is heat treated different and you do not want it inside the house. Food grade, white powder, looks like flour. Now what it actually is, it is the crushed up shells of tiny little water critters from a long time ago, ground so fine it feels like talcum powder to your hand. But to a bug with an exoskeleton, every grain of it is a piece of broken glass. When a roach walks through a thin coat of it, the powder works up under the shell, scratches off the waxy coating that holds the bug's moisture in, and the roach dries out from the inside. No poison, no nerve agent, no vapor in the air your kid is breathing. Just physics. The dog can lick it. The cat can lick it. Folks put it in chicken feed. It will not hurt them. The only rule is do not huff a cloud of it when you're laying it down. Same as any fine dust. You do not want a lungful of it. Tie a bandana over your face while you work, and you are fine. Now here is how you apply it, and this part matters because people get this wrong and then they tell their cousin it doesn't work. You want a whisper of dust, not a snowdrift. A roach will walk right through a thin film. A roach will walk all the way around a pile, so less is more. A coat so thin you almost can't see it is doing more work than a heaping spoonful. Take a turkey baster or one of those little squeeze bottles ladies use for hair color. They run $1 and you puff a fine coat into the cracks, behind the fridge, behind the stove, underneath the dishwasher, along the back edge of the cabinets where they meet the wall, inside the cabinet under the sink in the corners, around the pipe where it comes up through the floor, in that gap behind the toilet that nobody ever cleans. You do not put it out in the middle of the kitchen floor where you walk. You put it where the bugs walk, the dark edges, the hidden seams. That's their highway, and you're laying gravel on it. Lay it down once. Walk away. Leave it alone. If a pipe drips on it and it cakes up, repuff that one spot. Otherwise, it just sits there and works for months. Step 4. Gel bait. This is the partner to the dust, and the two of them together are the whole ball game. Gel bait comes in a little plastic syringe. You can pick up a tube of Advion or Max Force at a hardware store or online for somewhere between $8 and $15 depending on where you shop. One tube does a whole house twice over. You will not use it all the first time. You put a pinhead-sized drop, not a stripe, not a glob, a pinhead in the back corner of every cabinet behind the hinge of the dishwasher, up under the lip of the counter, on top of the fridge in the back corner where nobody looks. about every 2 foot or so in the rooms where you've actually seen them. Now here is the mechanism, and I think it is kind of pretty when you stop and think about it. A roach finds that drop, eats it, carries it back into the wall void where his cousins are. He dies in there. The others eat him. They die. The young ones eat them. They die. One pinhead of bait cascades through the whole colony hidden behind your drywall. You do not have to find the nest. The bait finds the nest for you. That is the part the spray truck cannot do at any price because spray sits on a surface. Bait travel. Couple of rules. Do not put the gel bait right next to the diatomaceous earth. The dust will dry the bait out and the roaches won't touch it. Keep them a few inches apart. The dust is for the highways. The bait is for the rest stops. And please do not spray a contact killer over your bait spots. I see this all the time. Folks lay bait, then the next day they see a roach and out comes the raid right on top of it. Now the bait is contaminated and the roaches will avoid it. You picked one or the other. Pick the bait. The bait is doing the real work. Step 5. And this is the part you actually came here for. The scent. Once you've got the colony dying off from the bait and the dust, you want to keep new roaches from wandering in from the garage, from the crawl space, from the neighbor's place who hasn't done any of this work and never will. That is where peppermint and bay leaf earn their keep. Roaches breathe through little holes along the side of their body called spiracles. Strong essential oils, particularly peppermint, irritate those holes something fierce. A roach will not cross a strong peppermint line if it has any other option in the world. It turns around and goes the other way. So take that $4 bottle of peppermint oil from the dollar store, put 15-20 drops in a spray bottle with about a cup of water and a tiny squirt of dish soap so the oil mixes instead of floating on top. Shake it up, mist it along the baseboards, around the door thresholds, around the window sills, around the pipe penetrations under the sink, around the dryer vent where it comes out the back of the house once a week. Then take a box of plain bay leaves from the spice aisle, $1.25, snap a leaf in half, that is what releases the oil, and tuck one in the back of every cabinet, one in the pantry, one in the drawer with the flour and sugar, one behind the trash can, one on top of the fridge. Replace them every couple months when you sniff one and it doesn't smell like much anymore. That is your scent barrier. Peppermint and bay, they don't like the smell and they go elsewhere. My wife walked into the kitchen the week I first did this and said it smelled like a candy cane factory had a fight with a pot roast. She got used to it, so will you. Now here's my honesty beat because I am not going to lie to you and tell you the easy part is the whole answer. Peppermint and bay leaves by themselves will not clear out an established roach infestation. There are people online who will tell you a few drops of peppermint will run roaches right out of the house. That is not true. You will waste a week finding out it is not true. Peppermint repels, peppermint does not kill. If you've already got roaches living in the walls of the house, you need the bait and you need the dust to actually end the colony. The peppermint and the bay leaves are the fence you build around the property after the real work is done. Don't skip the work. And one more honest word, if the roaches you're seeing are the little tan ones, about a ½ inch long with 2 dark stripes right behind the head, those are German roaches, and that means a heavy infestation, especially if you're seeing them in broad daylight. You may need 2 or 3 rounds of bait spaced out over a month to fully clear them. Be patient. Don't panic and call the truck. And if you've got a structural situation, roaches pouring out of a wall every time you open a cabinet, a hoarder house you inherited, a commercial kitchen, that is a real time to call a professional, and I mean that without sarcasm. But for a normal house with a normal roach problem, what I just walked you through is the same protocol that actually clears it. Same one, just without the monthly bill. Take a step back with me for a second. Why does any of this matter past the money you save? Because every month you skip the spray truck, you spare the bees in your yard, you spare the toad living under the back step who eats more bugs in a night than any can of poison ever did. You spare your own lungs and your dog's belly and the cat who licks her paws after she walks across the kitchen floor. You also stop renting your problem from a stranger. You start owning your own house again. There is something about that I like a whole lot. So here's your weekend, plain as I can make it. Saturday morning, flashlight in hand, you walk the kitchen and the bathrooms, you fix every drip, pick up every wet rag, empty the drains, set the dog bowl in the sink for the night. That part is free. Saturday afternoon, you drive to the feed store for the bag of food-grade diatomaceous earth. You stop at the hardware store on the way home for a tube of Advion or Max Force. You stop at the dollar store for the peppermint oil, the spray bottle, the box of bay leaves, and a hair color squeeze bottle, $12, maybe $15, depending on what you've already got at the house. Saturday evening, you puff the dust into the cracks. You dot the gel bait in the back corners. You mist the peppermint along the baseboards. You snap the bay leaves and tuck them in the cabinets. Sunday, you sit on the porch. That is the whole weekend. Now do me a favor. Down in the comments, tell me where you're writing from and what you're dealing with. Roaches, ants, mice, silverfish, whatever's gotten into your kitchen, I read them, I really do. If I see the same trouble pop up from 20 different folks in 20 different states, that becomes the next video. Speaking of the next one, a lot of you have been asking about ants, the trail of them across the counter every July, the little black ones that find the sugar bowl from 40 foot away. That one's coming up next, and there's a trick with a cotton ball and a teaspoon of borax that I want to show you because it is even cheaper than what we did today. Until then, go fix the drip under the sink. That one little chore is half the battle, and you don't need me or anybody else to do it for you. Take care of yourself and tell your dog Walt said hello.